Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Robertson here, bringing you all a quick channel update video. As many of you have seen, I've released a few ships onto both the Steam Workshop and the Space Engineers Mod.io website. Some of them are new creations that I've quickly thrown together, while others are designs that have been sitting on my hard drive for the last year or so that I've only just managed to get the time to complete and stick onto the workshop for everyone else to enjoy, including a few of the vessels that you can see in tonight's update video. Speaking of the Space Engineers Mod.io website, which, for those of you that didn't know, is where you can upload your content for Space Engineers for Xbox users to subscribe to and download to use in their version of the game, which can be quite a challenge, as the Xbox edition of Space Engineers doesn't have the Frostbite DLC yet, and they're not allowed to use programmable blocks, scripts, or third-party mods, at least not at the time of this recording. Well, as an experiment, I took the time to release some Xbox-friendly versions of the ships I've put up on the Steam Workshop, including the Dunsworth Civilian Starcruiser, as it was the most basic one out of the whole lot, and to my genuine surprise, it has done really well. Staggeringly well, in fact, because at the time of this recording, it has over 5,500 downloads and has been subscribed to by over 2,000 Xbox users. And what's even more surprising is that it's even on the front page of their most popular overall creations. This is absolutely amazing, and I can't thank my subscribers on Mod.io enough for all the incredible support. Especially given the fact that if you look at the Dunsworth on the Steam Workshop, you will be shocked to see that by comparison it only has 280 subscribers, and the same goes for the other vessels I've released recently. On Mod.io they all have over 1,500 downloads and subscribers respectively, except the newest one of course, but saying that, it's brand new and already has just over 200 downloads alone, yet on the Steam Workshop they're all struggling. But here's the thing, it's not just my content, which to be honest works well in-game but is pretty clunky and basic compared to anything released by the likes of Malmarid, Dolan or Aragath, but there's some absolutely incredible creations on Mod.io that have occupied many of the top positions over there, yet, while admittedly some of them have done well on Steam Workshop, there's a couple that haven't, but they're all doing significantly better on Mod.io and definitely seem to be getting the recognition they deserve over there. Now, my question to all my viewers and subscribers here is, why do you think that is the case? Are the algorithms on the Steam Workshop all messed up, or does the issue lie somewhere else entirely? I have asked around and had some feedback from a few of you guys earlier. Many of you, it seems, are just as confused as I am, but I have had one theory put across to me by my esteemed colleague Mike Young, who has suggested that it may be because of a difference in community. He feels that many of the core Space Engineers community members have since moved on, and those that remain are more interested in gimmicky content, visually flashy mods and add-ons, rather than, as he puts it, good solid content creation based on original ideas. And while I'm not entirely convinced by his argument, I do feel that it does have some merit, because when you do look at the workshop, especially at what's trending these days, and I'll use what's currently this week's top 5 creations at the time of this recording as an example, I can probably only see one of those as being something that I would even consider subscribing to, even at a stretch, which does give some credence to what Mike was saying, and in some ways is a little worrying. The reason why is because, as we all know, the devs at Keen Software House do check into the workshop from time to time and have even been known to use assets they've seen from there. And the last thing that we as a community want the devs to think when they browse the workshop is that we're only interested in shallow gimmicky creations. I mean, if they got that impression of us, then we risk them just giving us DLC that contains mostly shiny cosmetic stuff and hardly anything useful in it at all. Oh, hang on a second. Seriously though folks, I look forward to hearing what everyone else's thoughts are on this, and, going forward, whether or not it would be worthwhile for me to add any future Space Engineers content onto the Steam Workshop, other than my world saves that is, because they usually contain the ships and assets used in my YouTube series anyway. Or who knows, maybe there's an alternative to the Steam Workshop that content creators are using that I just don't know about. Either way, I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say in the comment section below. Anyway, moving on to the next topic, Empyrion Galactic Survival is set to release their Alpha 12 patch on the 15th of June, which will add things like being able to explore an entire galaxy complete with a galaxy map. Previously, it was just a few worlds linked by a set path that you could warp to between them, so this opens things up in a huge way. There's also a new snow-covered starter planet. The Polaris trading stations are offering station services now, such as repairs and refueling, which you can pay for using your credits. There's new missions and POIs for the player to investigate, and a whole slew of bug fixes and features, so feel free to visit their webpage on Steam for a full list, because this particular update looks like it's going to be big. The Big Red DLC for Void Destroyer 2 has now been released and is available for purchase on Steam. This is the first official DLC for the game and is intended for veteran players of Void Destroyer 2, as it adds a new single player campaign in which you play as a member of the Digger faction, who are the original settlers of the region of space where the events of the Void Destroyer 1 and 2 games take place. The Big Red DLC will allow players to acquire a Digger dreadnought named the Big Red, unsurprisingly, which is a massive mining ship capable of building and launching smaller ships and crushing larger ones with its front-mounted drills. At the start of the campaign, the Big Red is damaged and lacking in its usual abilities, so your early challenge will be to raise funds to cover its upkeep, repair it, and upgrade it to its full potential. And when you do, you'll have one of the most powerful ships in that region of space. That actually sounds pretty cool, and if it's anything like the original campaign, it should keep you entertained for hours on end. I'm also keen to see how it ties in to the original storyline. Since the last channel update, Bohemia Interactive have released more free DLC for Arma 3 Apex. This one is an open-world single-player scenario titled Old Man, in which you quite literally play as an old man. Essentially, you assume the role of a retired legionnaire living on Tanoa when suddenly a new strain of malaria causes a severe humanitarian crisis, and not only are the local authorities failing to distribute an effective vaccine to the civilian population, but you're also tipped off about a possible plot. So, together with a former military contractor, you attempt to avert a catastrophic power play in the region. I've had a quick shot at this one, and it feels very similar to another third-party open-world scenario I've downloaded called Anti-Stasi, Warlord of the Pacific, but because it's been created by the devs at Bohemia, there's a lot more focus on the storyline, and it does feel a little more polished than the player-made one, but there are a lot of similarities. The one thing I wasn't too keen on with this DLC was their choice of protagonist. I mean, while I'm not exactly 18 myself anymore, it's still hard trying to relate to a much older main character. I personally would have preferred to have played the role of a military contractor or some other similar type of character that accompanies the old fellow, rather than playing as the old man himself. Because, and I'm trying to be as kind as possible here, the guy looks as if he's in his sodding 80s. Yet he's running around like an Olympic athlete, shooting and blowing up shit like someone half his age. I mean, at least if he's under your command, you could yell orders at him and say things like, "2, old man, board that Zimmer walking frame at 1 o'clock, 50 metres. To which he'd probably reply with, 2, negative, can't hear you, Billy. Jokes and digs at the main character aside, it's still a very well designed mission and opens up essentially the whole island chain to the player, which I can see taking hours to finish. So you'll certainly get your money's worth. In a way you kind of are anyway, because this DLC is completely free. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for this video's Q&A segment. The first question I've picked out of the comments comes from Vasil of Belarus, who asks, "Now that you've had time to play Mount and Blade Bannerlord, what do you think of it?" Well, Vasil, it's certainly what I would call a rough diamond. It feels very much like a buggy, feature-incomplete special edition version of Warband rather than its own game, which is both good and bad, depending on what you're looking for in a Mount and Blade game, of course. I personally would have preferred a game set maybe 100 years in the future of Calradia rather than in its past. But it does let the devs muck around with some cool new siege-related features without having to worry about things like trebuchets, early cannon or matchlock muskets. I feel reviewing it at this stage wouldn't be right, as technically it's still in early access and thus unfinished, so I'm tempted to give it maybe another year or so before I come back and take a proper look at it. The next question comes from the Artful Muse, who says, I really enjoyed your series, thank you very much, and I'm very interested in starting my own channel that talks about my art and visual style, but I am quite new and I'm afraid of people posting critical or hurtful comments or getting me to say something that could get me banned. Is there any way to stop people trolling? Now, unfortunately, you're always going to get trolls and haters trying to post comments. Sadly, it's part and parcel of having a YouTube channel, and as such, you need to be able to have thick skin in order to deal with most of them. I'm quite lucky to be blessed with a channel that, unlike my previous one, for the most part has an amazing community, and I very rarely see any malicious or hateful posts, and when I do come across any that I see that contain anything remotely toxic, I usually just delete them right there and then. I did have one or two people recently that were frequently posting phrases with a lot of racist remarks and F-bombing, not so much directed at me, but, and don't laugh, they were directed at characters in the Into the Unknown series. Yeah, even though they weren't real. I know. So I've had to put any comments made on this channel set to be reviewed before being posted. Which is actually a good thing because it means that 1. I actually read what people are saying to me more often, and 2. Any under 18s that are watching the channel aren't being exposed to any inappropriate language. Which is actually quite important, as I've got a niece and several nephews that also watch my series, and I don't want their mum finding out that their new swear word of the day came from Uncle Robertson's channel. What I will say is, don't take any hateful or malicious comments that you see personally. In almost all cases, the people posting that sort of crap are what psychologists and relationship counsellors call low-quality people. In other words, they tend to be people with either physical or mental issues, or it may be that they suffered some sort of trauma or abuse at some point in their life, and instead of contributing anything helpful or meaningful, they get their kicks out of trying to make other people feel worse than them. Essentially, they're damaged human beings, and certainly not worth your time or attention. High quality people, the ones that tend to do well in life, are always trying to improve themselves. Even if they have shortcomings, they try their best to overcome them and raise up the people around them too. Those are the sorts of people that you need in your life because they're more likely to be genuine friends, and also because the feedback that they will give you will almost always be constructive. Now, at the end of the day, friends will be friends. We'll always have a cheeky jab or wind each other up, but in most cases we will never do anything that's deliberately malicious or hurtful to each other. And haters, well, yeah, they're generally low-quality people. In fact, I'll give you an example of one I had from, I think it was about a week ago. I saw that I had a comment to review for the Crimson Charmer video that I did about 3 months ago. And in it, the guy, he just basically goes off on one, telling me how he hates my voice acting, how my series sucked and no one likes it, that's why I've got no subscribers. And you know what I did? I actually started laughing. Looked at the screen and said, well, you can go F yourself then, and promptly deleted it. You know what? I don't even remember what the hell the guy's name was, only that he used some sort of weird green and white tiger head logo on his avatar. That's how little he and his poor attempt at trolling meant to me. You see, that's the sort of mindset that you need to adopt when dealing with people like those, because in a way, we should kind of feel sorry for them, that their lives are so sad, so meaningless, that they go to that sort of effort and those sorts of extremes to type what in that instance was an entire paragraph just to have me laugh at him and delete it. Anyway, to answer your original question, when it comes to starting your own channel, I say go for it. Do it because it makes you happy and don't give a damn what anyone else thinks, because I can guarantee you that for every hater out there, you'll get at least 10 more people that actually benefit from watching your channel and will appreciate all the effort and hard work you put into it. Now the next question comes from Sleipnir204, or is it Sleepnir204? Well, I'm sure you'll correct me if I've gotten it wrong. Who says, how do you feel about other content creators stealing your ideas and ripping off things from your series? Now, I'm going to remove the names because I don't want any drama on this channel, but he suggests that a certain individual has released a Daedalus class battlecruiser which he has called the Valiant, and apparently another author has released a dropship which is clearly a knockoff of the Wyvern or Griffin. Well, to be honest, I have seen a few creations on the workshop over the last few years that some of my subscribers and viewers have given me a link to, saying that other people have copied me or stolen my ideas. But in almost all the cases I've seen so far, a lot of it can be explained away in it either just being sheer coincidence or that they may have been very strongly inspired, either by my own creations or by the lore surrounding them. I have to admit though, it is a bit suspicious when someone gives one of their ships both a class and ship name from my Space Engineers Into the Unknown series without any mention or credit given, but at the end of the day, I've not copyrighted anything, nor do I have a webpage on Patreon that people are paying money towards in order to keep me in a lifestyle where I create content for them instead of working in an actual job. So what this means is that even though it may be rude and selfish, what they're doing technically isn't illegal. And to be honest, I really don't care, as essentially everything I've done so far has been for free, both for my own entertainment and for all my amazing viewers and subscribers out there. What I do find amusing, however, is on the rare occasion when a member of the community, usually kids I'm guessing, accuse me of copying from the very people who have copied my ideas, but they usually shut the hell up after I ask them to take a look at the dates involved, as in pretty much every single case, I did release the content or came up with the idea first, usually well before the other person did. Now, I'm not going to go into any detail about my stance on giving credit to modders or content creators, as I have already done a video that pretty much covers all that in depth a few years ago. But what I have seen is that, unfortunately, a lot of the content creators that, dare I say it, borrow ideas from other people without either acknowledging them or giving them credit, rely on their YouTube channels or their Patreons as a primary source of income, or are extremely invested in those same channels and their content. So too are their fans, obviously. So this sort of thing is going to pop up once in a while. Luckily, we're blessed with a really sensible and mature community, who for the most part tend to be good individuals, and as such they will usually call out anyone who they feel are stealing content or ideas from other content creators. Sadly, at the end of the day, if content is genuinely being stolen from someone else, then it's usually a sign that the one that's doing the stealing is running out of original ideas of their own. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all I have to say on that. The next question comes from Radagast, who asks, have you thought any more about Star Citizen now that 3.9 has come out? I'd love to see a Let's Play on that. My answer to that is maybe. Once I get a bit more free time, a better computer and fibre optic broadband. Right now, I'd struggle to both download and find the time to play it, as well as play it at a reasonable frame rate. As I've mentioned in a previous video, it's also a massively multiplayer game, and I'm not a huge fan of those, as even though you can meet some incredible people in those sorts of online games. I mean, I've played some online games from about 10 years ago and met some great people that I'm still friends with even today. But sadly, you also have your fair share of weirdos with antisocial personality disorders that, in real life, would have either been locked away for good or been killed by someone way earlier in their lives and not be able to magically respawn. So while I don't have any immediate plans to play Star Citizen, I may do in the future. Again, it's one of those things that we'll have to wait and see. The next question comes from Cobalt Steel 15, who asks, I hope one day there will be a branch off from Into the Unknown, a new series that has the same aspects of that but includes love and romance. Well, Cobalt Steel 15, anything's possible, but if there is an element of romance involved in the series, it would most likely be between two of the supporting characters. Unless, of course, an actual real-life girlfriend of mine was involved in the recording of the series, otherwise striking up a romance with an imaginary character would probably be a little bit too weird. And so far, very few of my real-life ex-girlfriends have been interested in gaming, or indeed anything YouTube related, to be honest, which is probably one of the reasons why they're ex-girlfriends. Well, what can I say? Apart from a rare gem once in a blue moon, sadly, for the most part, my choice in women tends to be, well, questionable. Anywho, moving on swiftly. The next question comes from, and I love this name, Benefit SpongerBob, who asks, would you consider doing a series on barotrauma, as I feel you'd offer a refreshingly serious perspective on it? And the answer to that is probably not, as even though it does look very interesting, the single player campaign and the bots especially are still a buggy mess. But I am keeping tabs on it, and if it does improve significantly in the next year or two, I might consider purchasing it for myself at some point. But saying that, it's not really the sort of game I do a Let's Play series on, but what I will do is provide you guys with a link to the Scarlet Seekers channel, as he's got quite a few videos on single player barotrauma, as well as a few other interesting games, and he's certainly one of the better Let's Play YouTubers out there right now. So it's definitely worth checking out. Again, I'll post the link to his channel in the description below. And the final question in today's Q&A session comes from Sharkin J Fox, who says, "Please do another Space Engineer series." To which my reply is, patience young Padawan, patience. As I have mentioned in the previous video, I do have plans for another Space Engineer series in the mid to near future, but it'll most likely be only for a single season. Plus, I'm waiting to see what Keen release in their forthcoming DLC packs. Apart from shiny cosmetics, that is. They have hinted that they'll be giving us small grid doors, which, like the ladders, is something we've been asking for since beta. But, as you've probably already seen in my reply to the request for feedback, I'm still holding out hope that they'll overhaul the combat, add more weapons, and maybe even a few more NPCs rather than just wolves and saboroids, because, as it stands right now, there's been no new weapons added to Space Engineers since they included the original Gatling guns and rocket launchers back in what may have been the alpha version of the game. And my main concern is that, like with the Subnautica devs, the head honchos at Keen may be against adding weapons full stop, and may have just left the original ones in because they know of the outrage it would cause if they removed them at this stage. But that's just a theory I have, a suspicion if you will, as there hasn't been any announcements from Keen to suggest this, just their lack of implementation and silence regarding the matter, and I sincerely hope I'm wrong about it. Well, that concludes tonight's Q&A session and indeed tonight's channel update video, so don't forget that if any of you have any more questions for me that you'd like to submit for the next Q&A session, please don't hesitate to leave them in the comment section below and I'll see what I can do. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all stay safe out there, and until next time, this is Robertson, signing off.